Episode 5 of the Daddyless Issues podcast. The title of this episode is He Never Wanted You. Today's piece of the puzzle is letting go is all right. Let's get into it. He never wanted you, or he never meant to come back and reclaim you. He left. He abandoned you. Period. We've heard the stories about the father who left the house to get a pack of cigarettes or to go get groceries, never to be heard from again. He wasn't kidnapped. He didn't fall into a pit. He wasn't hit by a car and has amnesia. No. He deserted you. And he deserted his family in some cases. This is one of the hardest things for some of us daddyless children to hear and deal with. Hell, it will be difficult for any person to deal with. I don't know very many people who can handle that type of rejection very well, but to be unwanted by someone or one of the people who's supposed to love you and care for you and be there for you unconditionally forever, well, I know that this is some kind of devastating. I'm sure this is one of the deepest kind of hurts that any person can feel. It can leave some children to believe that there must be something wrong with them. We all remember that episode and the famous line from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where Will tearfully asked his father who abandoned him, "How come you ain't want me, man?" But let's explore this. That moment on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was a tearjerker for me and probably many daddyless children. I felt Will's pain. I could relate. Hell, I asked the same question. At the same time, this scene in some ways may have led some of us viewers to ask the question or think that Will may have been asking, what was so wrong with him that his father rejected him and left? And we asked ourselves, what was so wrong with us that he decided he was going to leave or not even be a part of our lives? As if it may have been our fault or his fault that his father didn't stay. I said it before and I'll say it again. It was not your fault he denied you or left. You are not to blame for his inadequacies, period. Trust and believe. For me, it takes a special kind of a horrible person to reject their seed or abandon them. Now, let me make a point of clarification here. I am not talking about those men who had a situation arise with the child's mother that resulted in him being separated from his child at no fault of his own. There are tons of instances where, issues between a mother and a father prevented him from having a relationship with his child or children. Let's be clear. There's a difference between a father that abandons his children and one who is not permitted to see or have contact with them because of their parents' relationship. Meaning abandonment is a voluntary decision a father makes versus being forced into a situation where he has no real choice and is not permitted to see his child. I'll talk about those issues, in another episode. It's called Baby Mama Drama. But in this episode, I want to focus in on those fathers who denied their children, never accepting them, or those who were all right with simply rejecting and leaving with no intention of having a relationship with their child whatsoever. Daddyless issue of abandonment is probably one of the most talked about matters in our society as it relates to relationships and some families. Men tend to say that women have daddy issues, right? When they experience problems in their relationships. There's probably some truth to the concerns expressed by some people. But the trauma associated with feeling abandoned by your own father can linger on for years for both men and women. We may just deal and cope with it differently. I'm going to talk about some of those differences here shortly. See, these abandonment issues may lead girls and women into toxic and harmful relationships, or to be extra clingy because they're worried about being dumped or left. And in some cases, these individuals will appear needy, and this can be a turnoff for some men. These women either chase men who leave or push the good ones away who wanted to stay. Alternatively, it may lead men to run from woman to woman, not being in stable relationships because of their own insecurities and possible jealousy. It may lead women to desire attention, any kind of attention, to have a sense of value or connection to a man because their daddy wasn't there. It can lead men to continue the generational curse of abandoning their own children because that was what happened to them. And hell, it can lead both men and women to believe that they are not worthy of love because they were unwanted by one of the people who should have loved them without qualification. So a byproduct of being abandoned is that some people may feel that every relationship they're in has contingencies. It has these strings attached. In our daddyless minds, we think so long as we do for them or meet their requirements, they won't leave. You meet these conditions and you can receive and deserve their love. Or at least that is what some of us are led to believe. As daddyless children, there is an inescapable feeling of abandonment, period. Some of us may not recognize it at first, but as we experience various relationships, there is an unrelenting feeling that someone might leave us. Now, generally, everyone may feel as though they might be left or rejected at some point. That's a normal feeling. But for us daddyless children, these feelings are amplified because of what we have lost or even never had. In some cases, these feelings are constantly at the forefront of our minds. And on the other hand, there are individuals who don't seem to recognize it at all, or at least they don't want to acknowledge it. This need for acceptance can also lead daddyless children to be manipulated. Sometimes very easily. If a person is aware of your need for acceptance, they can use it to their advantage, dangling the threat of leaving over that other person's head like a carrot in order to get them to do whatever they want or to get from them whatever they want. And there's a tendency to gravitate towards emotionally unavailable or abusive partners. We've seen the situations play out where, let's say, a woman has a fear of being abandoned, and her boyfriend or husband, who is aware of this trauma, he uses it and her fear as a means of getting her to do things that most people won't. For example, accepting his abuse, whether verbal or physical. She'll take it. She'll take a physical beating and then go right back to the man. She'll defend his actions to her family, her friends, and anyone who tries to convince her to leave. She would just respond, "He loves me. He's just misunderstood. He said he won't do it again." Or, "It was my fault he whipped my ass. I deserved it." The daddyless child is prone to self-deprecation and blame themselves. This is a symptom of a sense of low self-worth or low self-esteem. Again, this is not all of us, but it's prevalent. Friends and family look at them like they're crazy. Some in anger, some in shame, some in pity, some in disgust, because they can't believe she continues to accept this abuse and won't leave. If only you could see yourself in your situation as an observer watching, you might realize that you are being taken advantage of. You as a daddyless child may feel that you are controlling the other person by giving in to their demands, but they're really controlling you. Here's what I mean. You may think that you are keeping that person around by allowing them to do whatever they want to you. You think that you're in the driver's seat because you are impacting on their desire to leave you. You think this is the power position, but in reality, the other person is getting whatever they want out of you, behaving in any kind of way towards you, and all they have to do is stay and deal with the toxicity. Honestly, you're not winning. You're losing physically, emotionally, spiritually, because you are actually not getting anything but that person's presence and more pain. Think about it, like for real. How many times has he or she lied, cheated, and abused you? How many times did you take them back? You need to understand that these people are not doing this because they love you. They simply do it because they can, and they know there are no consequences. Let's be clear. We need to recognize our need for acceptance. You see, if you are aware of your constant desire to have approval or acknowledgement, you may be able to do something about it. You can stop the cycle of abuse. You can get away from your abuser. You can stand your ground and stand up for yourself, and in some cases, for your children. It's important to point out that those issues I've attributed to women are not isolated to them only. And vice versa. The same is true for those issues I've attributed to men. Both men and women can exhibit these characteristics. The needy behavior can manifest itself in a number of ways. The insecurity and jealousy that some of us may feel may be caused both by men and women to act out in a variety of hurtful and very tragic ways. Stalking, abusive behavior, isolationism, possessiveness. All of these are potentially destructive actions that can be taken by a damaged and trauma-filled individual. Being overly suspicious, distrustful, and controlling. These are all symptoms of these types of behaviors that these individuals, they have these unaddressed abandonment issues. They may exhibit these. The behaviors can go even further and have some very tragic consequences. We've all seen the stories on the news. A current or former lover kidnaps and unalives themselves, their former partner, or both. It seems imaginable, but we know that hurt people hurt people. And stories like this are being told every day. There are people, some daddyless, who just have problems with letting go. And in some cases, believe it or not, it might just stem from the absence of their father. Not to say it's all their fault and all the blame should be shifted to the father, but it's so important that their absence causes a lot of these issues. So another side effect for many daddyless children dealing with their abandonment issues is being the instigator of the abandonment. This means that we become the people who leave before we get left. Obviously, not everyone who is in a relationship is out to leave, reject, or even abandon us. But some people feel it necessary to end a relationship before what they believe in their head is an inevitable conclusion. Ending things before they become too serious out of fear. The fear, either real or imagined, is the catalyst for their actions. So think about it. And the other alternative for some daddyless children is not taking a relationship very seriously. Jumping from person to person and not maintaining long-term relationships is their MO. The thought is, if I don't get too close to a person, I can't get hurt. So people are kept at arm's length, more acquaintances, or kept at superficial levels. And in some cases, the abuser or the manipulator is them, as opposed to them being manipulated. These individuals may be scammers or hustlers. And the idea is, if no one was there for them, then why should they care about anybody else? And these people can be particularly dangerous and heartless because they don't feel like they have anything to lose. Many times they become criminals as they, have lost their connection to other people, mainly by choice. So if you're aware of those folks, or if you are one of those folks, I am asking you to get some assistance. Maybe it's professional. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's somebody you trust. But you really need to make an effort to regain your humanity. And as opposed to those who maintain surface level relationships, there are those who are always wanting to be liked. And this is another side effect of being abandoned. Have you ever known someone who is willing to do anything to be a part of a group? Someone who is willing to cheat, lie, and hurt others in order to get approval? We hear about these people all the time who are looking for a sense of family, so they join a gang or a cult or some other group just to feel welcome and wanted. And they feel like the gang or this group showed them the love that they were longing for, that they never had. And many times they are misled into believing that these people in these groups have their best interest at heart and love them because they have never known what true love looks like. I mean, think about it. If the only example of loyalty and love you have ever known was being jumped into a gang, then that's what you believe love is. Or the only way you can show love is by having sex with the members of the group, then you've been shown a distorted version of what love looks like. And unfortunately, if these were your examples, then this looks normal to you. So in a at least somewhat healthy world, a dad is there to intervene. They're there to provide you with positive examples and to serve as a role model so you don't get caught up in believing these lies. So this is just another demonstration of how important he can be and how his absence is being filled by other people and things. This is not to say that some children that have their dads in their lives don't go astray. However, we know that 70% of the people in prison did not have their dad in their lives. Thus, the proof is simply in the numbers. And another consequence of someone always looking for acceptance is the question of their authenticity. If a person is always looking for approval and the approval of others, there's no telling how far they are willing to go in order to get it. Unethical, immoral, sometimes illegal, and fake behavior may follow. When this behavior is exhibited, the person usually gets the opposite of what they actually wanted. They're shunned and ostracized, sometimes imprisoned, and again, rejected. So the moral of the story for me and them would be yourself. Be honest. You don't have to be liked by everybody. And these abandonment issues can cause people to leave and lose individuals that actually may have been good for them and their lives. Losing friends and loved ones who actually have their best interests at heart can result from these distorted and misplaced feelings of needing acceptance. The feeling of being rejected by someone always seems to loom in the background, consciously or subconsciously. Now, some people will deny this fact as if they are immune from these feelings. But think about it. One of the most important and influential people, at least expectedly, has decided to reject you. This has to have a significant impact on how things look to you in the future, especially when someone says no to you. Having a parent or someone who cares about you walk out of your life can leave you feeling empty and unsure of your worth. So really resonate on that. Think about that for a while because it's really important. So there's another aspect of things. There's another group of individuals I want to talk about with you, and that's the overachiever. Being exceptional at something can be extremely rewarding, and in some cases, it can even bring you fortune and fame. Basketball players, football players, lawyers, doctors, very important people. We hear the stories of many of these daddyless children becoming great in spite of not having their biological father in their lives. And this does not mean that a dad was not or is not necessary. To the contrary, a male figure and a role model is still going to be important even for these individuals because there's still going to be something that's missing that they need to fulfill. And maybe they got a mentor or someone else who filled that gap. But dads, in my opinion, are the essential. Many great individuals are and were daddyless. However, the desire for acceptance and acknowledgement for many may have been their motivation for their actions, wanting to show their fathers what they missed out on by not being a part of their children's lives, or even a desire for revenge to show them that I was able to become great even without him. It can cause some children to push harder than they normally would have to achieve their goals. The need to escape poverty or unhealthy situations that they were in, the results of the father's absence can be a push that some of us need to achieve our ultimate goal. It happened for me personally. My dissatisfaction was the push. How unsatisfied I was with our personal situation. Here's my story. I always wanted to be a lawyer. In fact, it was my dream since I was about 5. And since we were poor and we didn't have very many resources, I had no clue as to how I was going to achieve this goal, how I was going to do it. Without money or any real knowledge of what it was and what I needed to do to become a lawyer, I had to figure this problem out on my own. And because there was a lack of stability at home throughout my grammar school and my middle school years, my grades were suspect at the very least. High school was no better. My grades were all over the place. I was good to have a 2.0 at times. So an overachiever at that point, I wasn't. However, I did have this dream. So in my senior year, I took the only course that I could that was related to the law. It was a legal secretary program at the Career Center. Now, since law was in the title, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try it. I'm interested. But the other part of it was secretary. So we had things like shorthand and typing. I was the only male in that class too. And honestly, I only wanted the law part. So needless to say, I did horribly at the typing and the shorthand, but I did very well at the law because I applied myself to that. But at any rate, I ended up having to leave the Career Center before I failed out in my senior year, which would have stopped me from graduating. So as an alternative, I took a course in cooperative office education, and I did well. My GPA went up. I made the dean's list for the final 3 semesters of my senior year. And outside of my final year, my grades were only mediocre. And my ACTs, they weren't the greatest. So I ain't even gonna mention that. But all that being said, my prospects for college were limited. At any rate, I was still able to get accepted by the grace of God. I was able to get accepted into Wilberforce University, the oldest historically Black university liberal arts school in the United States. I made the dean's list for a good number of semesters and I graduated with 3.2 GPA. And I still had a dream of going to law school. I took the LSAT and I did okay, but there was still little hope that I was going to get into the college that I wanted, which was Capital Law. So I applied. Unfortunately, I didn't get in. I took the LSAT again. I did somewhat better. But this time, I paid more attention to what they allowed you to do. They allowed you to write a personal statement. So I focused my attention there. And this personal statement is good because it allows you to write to the admissions committee. So I did. This was the thing that I needed, an opportunity to tell my story. And I wrote an exceptional personal statement. And this, along with my decent LSAT score, was what got me into law school. But I always say that it was by the grace of God that dean, that admissions director, wanted to see how my story would end. And I did decent in law school. And I subsequently passed the bar. It took me a few times to do that, but I was able to achieve my lifelong goal and become one of the 0.4% of the US population that are lawyers. So I guess this underachiever became an overachiever. The thing is, had my father been in my life, I would not have been able to tell the story I did in my personal statement. And I'll share that in another episode. But the point of this is that against all odds is in fact the story of many successful daddyless children. There's a drive in some of us that causes us to set and achieve the goals of our lives. Maybe for some of us abandoned children, we wanted to overachieve and do well so he would come back. That he would be so proud of his child that he would want to be a part of their lives. Or maybe he would come back in order to reap some of the fame and fortune that has been obtained. Or he wants to take some of the credit. He wants the world to know it was his DNA or his genes that made us successful. His DNA that gave us the jump shot or the quick feet, the speed or the height to play the sport. Or his DNA that gave us the intelligence to be great businessmen and women. It had something to do with him, even though he abandoned us and never spent any of the hours it took for us to achieve the success we have. Overall, what I'm saying is that for some of us, we will overachieve in order to gain admiration, acceptance, and love. But I want you to know this, that this may just be another coping mechanism for us, for being abandoned, rejected, and daddyless. Confidence and self-assurance are definitely positive ways to deal with abandonment issues. Success can help you feel more sure of yourself. You don't want to be cocky or arrogant, but you need to be self-assured and self-aware. And this comes with emotional intelligence. That means you recognize that in some situations, it's not you, it's them. But in other cases, it in fact may be you. Being confident and self-assured does not mean that you want to lie to yourself and believe that you will never be dumped or be told no. But if you are confident in who we and you are, we know that in these instances, we can bounce back and continue with our lives, even without that person. That having this person out of our lives is not the end of the story. It's extremely important for us to understand that there is no person, no human being on this planet that we cannot live without. We may feel like there is, but in actuality, there isn't. No, by no means am I saying that you should not or cannot be connected to or love others. We definitely should, but we have to understand that we are not going to die if that person is not a part of our lives, no matter how much we love them, period. I am not advocating for you not to have strong bonds or relationships, but what I am saying is that you should not be cold or callous. But in order to survive, you need you. We never need to amplify any feelings of abandonment. Someone's going to leave us at some point in time, but someone leaving our lives does not mean that we are inadequate or have no value. And in fact, in some instances, it may be the best thing that that person not be there so that we can grow and have a better understanding of who we are. Understand this, you are not less than, but you may need to make some adjustments in order to have the wholeness that you need to overcome the feelings like you are always going to be left behind. You are not a reject just because that relationship didn't work out. You are still important. You still have value, especially to those who love you. So long as you have not alienated all the people around you by lying, deceiving, or being disingenuous, there is someone out there who cares about you. Use your energy to build stronger relationships with the people who want to have them with you. Use your time to learn more about the reasons you feel the way you do. Take more time to identify the things that you know you can improve and accept some of the constructive criticism you've heard from those who have shared how they feel about you. Not everyone has your best interest at heart. So you will need to filter out the noise coming from some people in some relationships and focus on those who aren't serving their own agendas or dealing with their own inadequacies by tearing you down. Take what you can and turn it into a positive learning experience. Don't go overboard in making yourself feel unaccepted, unappreciated, or unloved. My recommendation is that you find positive influences, especially when we didn't get them from our fathers. Find role models, other men that you can rely on, people you can trust that won't try to manipulate you or abuse you. It can be a family member, an uncle, a nephew, a cousin, or even a male friend. Use them as a guidepost, a sounding board. But most of all, know that even if he is not there, you need to love yourself and know that you are worthy of love. So tell me your story. Were you abandoned? What did you do for acceptance? Did you degrade yourself, humiliate yourself, do some things that you aren't proud of? Or have you become a successful daddyless child? And how did that play a part in who you became? Were you an overachiever? Did you want to show your father what he missed out on? Did you even want him to come back? Tell me your situation. Tell me your story. I need you to know this. You are still worthy of love, and it is not too late to rewrite what you believe about yourself. Name your pain. Separate your identity from the abandonment. I learned to self-validate, and maybe that's something that you need to do as well. You are not broken. You were left, but you are not less than. If you have been exploring your feelings of abandonment, you may want to seek the help of a professional therapist, a counselor, or a psychiatrist. You don't have to try and deal with these feelings alone. So my suggestion to you is pursue that. Look for that help. Go to your pastor, somebody who can help impart some of that wisdom. Alternatively, write your father a letter. Even if you never hear from him or you have an opportunity to give it to him, let him know that you have addressed it in your own way. And once you do, work on forgiving him for leaving. Cast your abandonment into the sea of forgetfulness and work on healing. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next episode where we will deal with the daddyless issue of promiscuity. So peace and love.